like a little refinement of the nose. What's wrong with me nose? Do I look like a Jew? No, ma'am, not at all. Phew. Borat's subsequent movie film, delivery of prodigious bribe to American regime for make benefit once glorious nation of Kazakhstan, is a superior film to its predecessor by basically every metric. Every scene in the film drives the plot forward or builds character, and it also actually has an emotional core with stakes. The same can't really be said about the first film, where Borat's mission is just to, hang out, and eventually he decides to kidnap Pamela Anderson. For the first time in my life, I was in love. The second film not only centers on the relationship between Borat and his daughter, it also actually has stakes. If he fails in his mission, he will be executed. If you do not deliver a bribe to get me into Strongman Club, you will be executed. It's no secret that Borat 1 was cobbled together in the edit, and the same holds true of the sequel, Walla Walla. But the filmmakers actually set out with an emotional core to the film and worked around that. But the remarkable thing to me isn't that the film has a much more cohesive structure, but rather that the joke itself hasn't aged poorly in the way that so much mid-2000s comedy has. And now, girls jumping on trampolines. Now, as to whether or not Borat's 1 or 2 can be considered problematic, I could not concentrate on what this old man was saying. As old and is up for some debate. I think it's a fair question to ask how much Borat, the lovable anti-Semite, helped to normalize ironic anti-Semitism in the way that South Park did. Oh yeah, well, you a stupid Jew. You a Jew. Such a goddamn Jew, Matt. And ironic anti-Semitism has been the biggest gateway for actual anti-Semitism in this last decade, giving us a renaissance which we are presently living through. Kazakhstan, glorious country. It have a problem, too. Economic, social, and Jew. And I'm not really in a position to say that he's, Jewing wrong. Like Mel Brooks, he is a polarizing figure within the Jewish community. At times, some critics have said me comedy risks reinforcing old stereotypes. But anyway, my thought when I first saw ads for the second Borat movie was to compare it to similar mid-2000s humor that I think on the whole has aged very poorly. So the method of coping with the state of the world back in 2006 was to kind of act above it all, even when dealing with injustices. This guy does the best alien impersonation. I can't do it. Go on. I don't. Matt Stone and Trey Parker spent the whole 2000s explaining that things were fine, actually. Both sides bad. Welcome to the cable access televised debate between Agent Duchy and a turd sandwich. Avenue reassures us that things are only for now. And then there's Borat. This why Ministry of Information have decided to send me to US, and I greatest country in the world. Borat's subsequent movie a film is less comparable to Borat than it is to Fahrenheit 9/11. Borat's subsequent movie a film is much more shrewd in its target, more overt with its politics. And the first one was still pretty overt. And it even ends with a call to action to vote, leaving people who were apparently oblivious to the political undertones that were always present in Borat confused and upset. It seems obvious to state out loud, but Borat was always political. The film spends a lot of time exposing American jingoism, tricking people into exposing their bigotries or their indifference to bigotry. Come on and make my day, Jew. But Borat isn't meant to be political in the way that Sacha Baron Cohen's later project, Who is America?, is. If you want to win, you show some skin. Okay. Okay, show it to me. Cohen's earlier characters were more cringe comedy that sometimes excel at being political. In terms of early Borat, what most people tend to think of is the scene from the Aligo show in which he sings a song called "In Me Country There Is Problem," which features the lyrics. And from Borat the movie, you have memorable scenes like these Fret goes. But that sort of thing actually doesn't take up that much runtime of the first film. Mostly it's this sort of thing. So Cohen uses this lovable anti-Semitic buffoon. The people he's talking to think he's at best a malleable knife and at worst barely human. They let their guards down enough to say some truly heinous things. Borat gets people to say the quiet part loud. Shave that dead gum mustache off so you not so conspicuous. So you look like maybe an Italian. So the thing that struck me about Borat's subsequent movie film was that the movie uses almost the exact same shtick as the now 14-year-old first movie. But that shtick rang very different then than it does today. And I think what kind of really struck me in a horrible way was that it's not even that the bit didn't gauge poorly, it's that it actually works better in 2020 than it did in 2006. And I think that's because Borat finally figured out his sense of purpose. We are a part of the global community influencing elections around the world. Borat falls within this sort of prank reality genre that was really huge in the late 90s and 2000s. I am following you. I just went in a drugstore and bought some condoms. I am running, I'm running, I am running. You have shows like the Tom Green Show, Boiling Point, Crank Yankers, Trigger Happyet, and Ashton Kutcher's Punch ran for 11 seasons. And most of these shows are primarily run on the premise of annoying/scaring people to get a response. Whether it's shows like Sci-Fi Scare Tactics, wherein people are unknowingly placed in premises that mimic scenarios from horror films, or stupid shtick like this from Cranky Anchors. I got mail, I got mail, I got mail, I got mail. And of course there was Tom Green. So to show my parents how much I love them, Ivy turned my parents' vehicle into more than just a vehicle. Dad can't take the bus to work. I'm gonna take the slutmobile to the bus stop. Whoa, there's a lot of people at the bus stop. I hope my dad's not embarrassed by his slutmobile. But the difference between this stuff and what Sacha Baron Cohen was doing was Cohen's material had a more political edge. So which is the party of the homosexuals? They tend to go to the Democratic Party. So let's look at a quick history of Borat. Earlier iterations manifested in characters like Alexei Kreikler from Moldova, and for a while Cohen had a character named Christo in the 90s. She wears too many clothes. But after 9-11, he evolved into Borat, and this Eastern European goon got folded into the Muslim world with Kazakhstan having elements of Eastern Europe, that former Soviet aesthetic, and being a Muslim-majority country. Yaksmesh. In USA, they treat their horses like we in Kazakhstan treat our women. Borat himself is not Muslim. He follows the way of the hawk. I am Kazakh. I follow the hawk. But he sometimes bears the brunt of Islamophobia. I see a lot of people, and I think there's a dadgum Muslim. I wonder what kind of bomb he's got strapped to him. But while early Borat is occasionally revealing people's bigotry, it's more often it's just seeing how much people will put up with because they think it's this backwards yokel. In this episode about horses, he just talks at this woman for 5 minutes. We say in Kazakhstan that a horse is like man. We say if a horse walk, it's like when a man walk. If a horse is old, it's like if a man is old. And that's the joke. And that's most of all elaborate. But there was more obvious political stuff in one episode called A Democracy. There are plenty of choice moments. If people choose the Jews, Will they go heaven or hell? I would have to say that they would go to hell. So the joke with Borat being so obviously unrepresentative of Kazakhstan is that people, Americans in particular, are so ignorant about foreign cultures that they just accept that this weird stereotype of a foreigner is legit. I think that the cultural differences are vast. And I think he's a delightful man. So 2006 Borat, Cultural Learnings of America for Make Benefit Glorious Nation of Kazakhstan, Aco Simply Borat, grossed $262 million worldwide. It is the top-grossing mockumentary in history and arguably the top-grossing documentary in history, depending on how you define documentary, having earned twice as much as its nearest competitor, Fahrenheit 9/11. Who? The movie ended at least one marriage of a person involved. And I texted Pamela Anderson. I said, how did it go? What do you think? And she texted back, he's getting divorced. I was like, why? She goes, the movie. And I thought it was a joke. But then a few weeks later, they got divorced and they put as reason for divorce Borat and several lawsuits from people in the film. Are women your slaves in Russia? No. Do you have slaves here? We wish. No slaves. We wish. But let's examine and throw the Jew down the well. What do we gather from this scene? Are these people revealing their raging anti-Semitism? Well, I don't think so. I don't think that's the insidious thing about this scene. Thing about the Rather, it reveals something much more casual. And there's something revelatory in that people are just willing to go with it. Borat was able to get an entire bar in Arizona toasting, throw the Jew down the well. It did reveal people's indifference to anti-Semitism. But at the same time, I feel like the 2006 film reveals that Cohen, while joking about these things, he didn't take them that seriously. Up until recently, he rarely did interviews as himself. But in an interview in 2012, he doesn't seem too worried about anti-Semitism as a big problem. Do you worry about anti-Semitism now? No. I mean, I don't think there's much anti-Semitism in England. I think relatively compared to certain other European countries, it's quite minor. He doesn't really take authoritarianism seriously. I had always found Colonel Gaddafi hilarious. But to me the most remarkable scene is the one with these frat boys who pick up Borat while hitchhiking. Borat usually needs to get people to let their guards down. But in this scene, he doesn't need to goad them at all. He sits down and they just start going off. Our country, the minorities actually have more power. It would be better country if, yes, it would be a better country. We should have slaves. And I think the red at the time was more like, isn't it surprising that some people are still like this? Like this is a residual phenomenon. We have the Jews. We have anybody that's against the mainstream. So at the time, most people kind of read the things in the film as revealing an ugly underbelly, but only that's on the outs. When in reality, this was more of a canary in the coal mine. So it's pretty obvious that the presidential election of 2016 had a pretty big effect on Cohen, by his own admission. By his own said the presidential election had said JFA be affected the show that just did, Who's America? Donald Trump got elected and I was upset by it. I was so angry. I felt he actually have to channel that into some characters aimed at who could sit with some of those people. And Who's America is kind of a lot of the same shtick as the A-League show, only this time it is pointedly very political. It's not a movie. It's a fucking terrorist movie. Okay, let me address terrorism. Rest assured I share your concerns and we will do everything we can to protect these Muslims from it. And most of it was him getting conservatives to do ridiculous things that were sort of in line with their beliefs. But there were other notable influences on 2020 Borat outside of Cohen's own body of work. But I recently discovered that by wearing one of my signature articles of clothing, I may have unintentionally committed a hate crime against the Jewish people. And that's not good. A Comedy Central show called Nathan for You, which ran from 2013 to 2016. Which will such Where Cohen's, who is America genuinely does at times feel like entrapment, is how to go undercover as a 15-year-old Quinceañera girl and to disarm the illegal Mexican. Nathan For You takes a much more nuanced approach than the mean-spirited punk-style humors of the 2000s. The premise for the show is that host and creator Nathan Fielder, who in his own words graduated from one of Canada's top business schools with really good grades, presents himself as a sort of business consultant to real people across Los Angeles to help pick up their dang business. And the proposals he gives to his unknowing subjects are almost always so ludicrous that you expect people to immediately call his bluff. Have her specialize in a currently unrepresented group of homebuyer, the 50 of people who believe in coasts. The plan: increase business by selling alcohol to minors. The plan: turn the Helio Cafe into the world's first parody Starbucks. But they rarely do. In fact, his targets usually embrace them, often with hilarious and rarely successful results. But the thing is, once they let their guard down around Nathan, they reveal themselves very easily. Overly intimate details. Your grandma said, long time ago, yeah, you drink your grandson's pee if you get scared. Not grandson, any little kid. There have been times in me life when I was able to ejaculate in another position, but especially as I'm getting older and fatter, it's pretty much the only position that works for me. That makes sense. Nathan For You is the rare prank show that is not rooted in pissing people off for a reaction or annoying them, but instead trying to help them out. Usually the MO is intentionally trying to get a rise out of people by attacking basic impulses, or often taking advantage of social norms that people will keep going about their business when presented with something absurd. This suit is black. Okay. I'm not. I'm not. I died. I hate. Not. But when the pranker presents themselves as a friend or neutral ear, like Nathan with his monotone normcore Canadian-ness, you know what I feel like. Oh yeah, a mother effin' beer. People reveal themselves more easily. See, for instance, the frat guy scene from the first film. Why, the bitches in the old Russia. What's a bit of bitch to women? It's the fucking whose baby? I'm a hot woman. The fucking girls. Borat dropping into a pack event he was invited to and bursting into a crowded room of Republicans. I mean, it's funny, but it still falls a little flat compared to the real strengths of the film. Scenes like the dinner party in the first film or the canon goes in the second one, where Borat is being treated more like a simple foreigner or just a neutral entity, tend to be the most illuminating. What is more dangerous, this virus or the Democrat? Democrats. Democrats. And also, like Borat, Nathan for you finds ways to incorporate deeply heavy subjects. For instance, Holocaust denial and anti-Semitism in ways that are both revelatory and funny, like they work. This is a retail store and you don't learn about the darkest moments of history in a retail store. I beg to differ. The Gap had a whole campaign to make people aware of breast cancer. So I don't think there's a problem. It was actually AIDS. AIDS. Sorry. So in order to work in today's mediascape, the intent of Borat has to change, not just because the character is super recognizable. Stupid foreign reporter. Yeah, kinda looks like you. You got the dark hair and the mustache. But because the first one came out when the internet was less widely used and everybody's resistant was on Facebook. The first one came out at a time when the bedrock of American horribleness was easier to ignore by most people. You are bigger than a woman. You are better than a woman. Do not let a woman ever make you who you are. Also, unlike earlier Borat, this new one is really heavy on issues of gender, which is arguably the theme at the most forefront of the film. Most of the scenes revolve around Borat treating his daughter horribly. All I had left was me livestock. 2 pigs, 1 cow, and a daughter. And people just kind of going along with it because, well, he's her dad, so that's fine. Or he'll say something deeply inappropriate. How much you think my daughter is worth? My daughter, well, you $500. Oh, thank you. That's all I have. Fucking morons. And people just laugh along because it doesn't really bother them. Where is the no means yes section? The scenes with Borat getting services for tutor, going into the crisis pregnancy center. I have a baby inside me and I want to take it out of me. Now that you know that I am her father, can we take it out now, please? God is the one who creates life. The plastic surgeon. I want a man who wants to make a sex attack on me. I think that would be Muslim. The makeover. What color is best for our racist family? I would stay right here. I wouldn't to go any darker than a 6 or 7. Boy, boy, are some of the strongest stuff he's ever done, not just because of what they get on film, but because these scenes further the plot so much more than anything in the first Borat movie. Also, while we rehear, Maria Bakalova's improved skills are amazing, especially considering English is like her third language. And the whole film, she's speaking Bulgarian and Cohen is speaking Hebrew. So in a lot of ways, not just with gender, subsequent movie of film just has a much worse situation to work with. Subsequent situation like well and somehow how show how so A culture feeling emboldened to say some really horrifying things, knowing that this is normalized now. It isn't just Borat being a straw man for comedic purposes, as much as it is revealing what people are willing to go along with. It's worth remarking that Janice, a babysitter who is tasked with looking after Tutor in the middle of the film, is one of the only people who shows genuine concern for Tutor's well-being. I will have the biggest titties in the whole world. Okay, so you re-getting plastic surgery at 15. Re-getting as if it thinks do you want that? Although the ethics of this whole thing are a little iffy, apparently they told this poor woman that they were filming like a documentary on child brides. So for months she thinks that there's this poor girl out there being married off to this old man, and then turns out it's for Borat. You re-giving a little girl to a old man. I mean, yeah. Cohen did give her church a bunch of money, and fans did raise money for her after she lost her job due to COVID. But you know, ye, your virgin cannot bite and cannot suck your arms to a ball. But Janice, despite being positioned as sort of the emotional heart of the film, stands in stark contrast to basically everyone else. Subsequent movie of film levels up from indifference to anti-Semitism to active participation. In the first movie, you get some light jokes. And, of course, from the Aligira, we got throw the Jew down the well. But by the time of subsequent movie of film, they got a good doing the Hitler salute on camera. They got a plastic surgeon to say this. Do I look like a Jew? No. Jew would be like this. And a baker to do this. Jews will not replace us. They got a random store owner to high-five Mexicans in cages. McDonald Trump, he cage Mexicans. In Borat, he says some wild things about his weird beliefs. And the joke is that people just kind of roll with it uncomfortably. I use white wine. No, I don't. You do. This is a very private thing. The host cleans the anus. But in subsequent movie of film, in one scene, you have Borat worried about Jew venom. Use your venom on me and finish me. I am very depressed. And in the very next scene, you have Canon Goys talking about Democrats torturing children in order to drink their blood to extract their adrenochrome because of their Satan worship. Then they take that out of their adrenal glands. And then they drink their blood or that. The things real Americans believe now are wilder than anything Borat has ever fictionally believed. But at the same time, the film also kind of reveals their humanity. These guys believe such toxic things, but at the same time, they allow this guy who they think is just a wacky foreigner to live with them for 5 days. So he lived with them undercover for 5 days. Yeah, they thought that it was a foreign guy who didn't really understand much about coronavirus. And also they re-patient with him. They re-supportive of his relationship with his daughter. They correct him when they think he's wrong. We re-looking at this and thinking, what? Yeah, it's a lie. That's it. It's a conspiracy theory. All this is true while they still believe the things that they do. They state with zero irony that Democrats should have fewer rights. They should have a bit less rights than you. I think they should. So I don't think the film offers up really any solutions as to what to do about this. But unlike the first Borat, where we just kind of laughing at the dark underbelly of American culture, what is the best gun to defend from a Jew? I would recommend either a 9mm or a .45. Subsequent movie of films shows that this dark underbelly can no longer be ignored. Wah, 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 wah. Can Project's Josepher. Biden Jr. is elected the 46th President of the United States. Joe Biden has won the American presidential election. The third time is the charm for former Vice President Joe Biden. So we started working on this before the election, but after that last week of doom scrolling. Doom scrolling? It means scrolling through doom. We decided to wait until after the election to finish it. I don't think anyone expected that this ugliness would go away when Trump did. But even braced for the worst-case scenario, it really is genuinely shocking to see the abject denial of reality play out. I can announce to you right now in high confidence that Donald Trump has been reelected to the United States. So how do you laugh at exposing reality when half of the country doesn't even agree on what the other half considers reality to be? Cohen has said that he doesn't blame the Canon Goys. They are looking for a sense of security in an insecure world, and they've been fed this stream of lies by grifters like Alex Jones and a social media scape that profits off of outrage. And he says he can't even dislike them. He just pities them. But again, looking at Borat's relationship to the Canon Goys, I don't think it's the worst thing in the world that the movie humanizes them. But they clearly not evil people. After all, they help a stranger who they think is in need. But at the same time, they kind of fine with this abstract idea of harming their political enemies. We can't do to them what we would like to do, because they unfortunately, they have the same rights we do. And while, yes, you do have some fringe shoals calling for, like genocide, I think that most people like these don't want actual bloodshed. But they are kind of fine if someone else comes along and suggests it. What should we do with scientists? Let's hear it for gas them up like the Germans. And that's the danger. That's where it's really easy for people to gaslight you. These people were only joking or trying to get a rise out of people. They said, oh, he said something. When they show me, I'm laughing, they laughing, everybody's laughing. Now, when you said you wished Americans would sit up out of tension when you would you said we wish our I when I intention yeah you said no I'm kidding. You don't understand sarcasm. Sounds interesting to me. I was asking a question sarcastically to reporters like you just to see what would happen. It's not shown in the film, but this rally actually ended really badly when the people in the audience figured out what was going on. Eventually, they booed Cohen off the stage. The doors are locked. And the organizers got up on stage and said that he said these racist things and we don't condone that, and now they re going to try to trick everybody into thinking that we really bad goes. We don't support anything that was up there and being said. I just want to let you all know that this is a conservative event. We believe in the Second Amendment, and we believe in equal rights for all. We do not discriminate for any reason, and that man is not welcome with us. They say this, and yet the film crew got so many of these people singing along and cheering on and going along with it until they realized what was going on. So with subsequent movie of film, the Juliana thing is funny, but it doesn't really tell us anything we didn't already know. She's 15. She's 15. She's too old for you. The really poignant and honestly scary thing is, instead of trying to provoke a certain reaction as Borat did in earlier days, it's more revealing people who might be, nice and regular people being okay with horrible things as long as they exist in the abstract and someone else is doing them. They should have a bit less rights than you. I am not. They should. There's an episode of Who is America where Cohen disguises himself as an Israeli operative and convinces this random Trump supporter that he's going to help him infiltrate an Antifa rally. So he gets this guy to go along with it, and once at the rally, they place little chips on some random protesters. Then Cohen tells this guy that if he pushes the button, it will take out these random Antifa terrorists. There is a small explosive device. Okay, small enough to create a fatal heart attack. And he does it believing that he has actually taken the life of 3 people. I've never participated in someone's death. And he's fine with it because it happened off screen and someone else arranged it. I wanted to see, would he actually do it? The answer was yes. He pushed the button and thought he had actually killed 3 human beings. Oh no, it's been a wonderful experience for me. Look at the people here. They are the lowest of the low. I agree. I've never seen so much sickness. So I kind of had this half-serious thought after I saw the new film that Borat is going to come back in another 15 years to an even worse America, and he's going to have an even easier time getting normal people to say and do horrible things. Let's say I wanted to finish Lives of 20 Gypsy. Would this be enough? Maybe the bigger one. And the way things are headed, I don't know. Nobody can tell the future. And honestly, I'm not going to try to. But all I can really take from this is Borat is good because the world is bad. So maybe he's the hero we need right now, but he is certainly not the hero we should want. Voltaire was right when he said those who can make you believe absurdities can make you commit atrocities. At read time. This episode was sponsored by Audible. Audible is the leading provider of spoken word entertainment and audiobooks, including Me Book, which was selected by Audible as one of the best of 2020. Yes, really. The copy says I'm supposed to tell you this in with the content of the video. It's like Borat in 2000's nostalgia. Borat was 2006. The book takes place in 2007. Relevant. And now Audible members get even more with Plus Catalog, which gives members access to thousands of audiobooks, sleep tracks, podcasts, Audible originals, all sorts of things. Audible members get 1 credit every month, which gives you access to thousands of books, bestsellers, new releases, everything, regardless of price, which is yours to keep forever. And you can start Audible now with a 30-day trial using me Vanity Earl, audible.com/Lindsay Ellis. That's audible.com/Lindsay Ellis. Or you can text Lindsay Ellis to 500-500. And you can use that free credit to pick up my book. No, I did not read it. I'm not the reader. People are like, where did you get that voice? And I'm like, do you not recognize me voice? That's not me voice. It is Oliver Thorne's voice, though from philosophy too. It's got 2 readers. So get started with Audible today. And also, thank you as always to our patrons. Patron credits begin now. Transcribed by Otter.